Chapter 15. It wasn't until dark came that I really began to get uneasy about Ma and Elizabeth. Then I could hardly stand it because they hadn't come home, and I knew in my own mind why they hadn't. It had been late when they started out. They had a good long piece to go, and even with wood handy, it took considerable time to drag up enough for the size of fire that they'd need. And I couldn't think of any real danger to them. They weren't far enough away from the cabin to be lost, and if they were, Jumper, he knew his way home. Also, Jumper was gentle, and there wasn't much chance that he'd scare and throw them off. On top of all that, they had Old Yeller along. Old Yeller might be pretty weak and crippled yet, but he'd protect them from just about anything that might come their way. Still, I was uneasy. I couldn't help the feeling that something was wrong. I'd have gone and see about them if it hadn't been for little Arliss. It was past his supper time, and he was getting hungry and sleepy and fussy. I took him and the speckled pup inside the kitchen and lit a candle, and I settled them on the floor and gave them each a bowl of sweet milk, into which I crumbled some cold cornbread. In a little bit, both were eating out of the same bowl, and little Arliss knew better than that, and I ought to have paddled him for doing it. But I didn't. I didn't say a word. I was too worried. I just about made my mind to put little Arliss and the pup to bed and go see for Ma and little Elizabeth when I heard a sound that took me to the door in a hurry. It was a sound of dogs fighting. The sound came from way back there in the dark, but the minute I stepped outside, I could tell the fight was moving towards the cabin. Also, I recognized the voice of Old Yeller. In sort of a raging yell he let out when he was in a sort of fight to a finish. It was the same savage roaring and snarling and squalling he had done the day that he fought those killer hogs off me, and the sound of it chilled my blood. I stood, rooted to the ground, trying to think what I could do, and what I ought to do. And then I heard Jumper snorting keenly and Ma calling in a frightened voice, "Travis! Travis, make a light, son! Get your gun! Hurry!" Well, I came alive then, and I hollered back to her and let her know that I'd heard, and I ran into the cabin and got my gun. I couldn't think at first what could make the sort of light I'd need, and then recollected a clump of bear grass that Ma had recently grubbed out, where she had planned to start a new fall garden. Bear grass has an oily sap that makes it burn bright and fierce for a long time. A pile of it burning would be a big light. I ran, snatched up 4 bundles of half-dried bear grass. The sharp ends of the stiff blades stabbed and stung my arms and chest as I grabbed them up, but I had no time to bother about that. I ran and dumped the bunches of piles into the bare ground outside the yard fence, and then hurried to bring a live coal from the fireplace to start them burning. I fanned fast with my hat. The bear grass blades started smoking, giving off their foul smell. A little flame flickered and started, and wavered for a moment, and then bloomed suddenly and leapt high with a roar. I jumped back, gun held ready, and caught my first glimpse of the screaming, howling fight that came wheeling into the circle of light. It was Old Yeller, all right, tangled with some animal as big and savage as he was. Ma called from outside the light's rim, "Careful, son, and take close aim. It's a big loafer wolf. It's gone mad." My heart nearly quit on me. There weren't many gray loafer wolves in our part of the country, but I knew about them. They were big and savage enough to hamstring a horse or drag down a full-grown cow, and here was Old Yeller, weak and crippled, trying to fight a mad one. I brought up my gun, and then held fire while I hollered at Ma, "Y'all get in the cabin. I'm scared to shoot till I know that you're out of line of fire." I heard Ma whack Jumper with a stick to make him go, and I heard Jumper snort and the clatter of his hoofs as he went galloping in a wide circle to come up behind the cabin. But even after Ma called from the door behind me, I still couldn't fire. not without taking a chance at killing Old Yeller. I waited, my nerves on edge, while Old Yeller and the big wolf fought there in the firelight, whirling and leaping and snarling, slashing, their bared fangs gleaming white, their eyes burning green in the half light. Then they went down in a tumbling roll that stopped with the big wolf on top, his huge jaws shut tight upon Yeller's throat. And that was my chance, and one that I'd better make good. As weak as Old Yeller was, he'd never break that throat hold. There, in the wavering light, I couldn't get a true bead on the wolf. I couldn't see my sights well enough. All I could do was guess aim and hope for a hit. I squeezed the trigger. The gun stock slammed back into my shoulder, and such a long streak of fire spouted from the gun barrel that it blinded me for a second, and I couldn't see a thing. Then I realized that all the growling and snarling had hushed, and a second later I was running towards the two still gray forms laying side by side. For a second, I just knew that I'd killed Old Yeller. Then, about the time I bent over him, he heaved a big sort of a sigh and struggled up to start licking at my hands and wagging his stump tail. I was so relieved that it seemed that all the strength went out of me, and I slumped to the ground and was sitting there shivering when Ma came out and sat down beside me. She put one arm across my shoulders and held it there while she told me what had happened. Like I'd figured, it had taken her and Elizabeth till dark to get the wood gathered up and the fire to get going around the dead cow. Then they'd mounted old Jumper and were heading for home. They'd been without water all this time and were thirsty, and when they came to the crossing on Birdsong Creek, they dismounted to get a drink, and while they were laying there drinking, the wolf came. He was right on them before they knew it. Ma happened to look up and seen the dark hulk of him come bounding towards them across a small clearing. He was snarling as he came, and Ma just barely had time to come to her feet and grab up a dead chinaberry pole before he sprang. And she whacked him hard across the head, knocking him to the ground, and Old Yeller was there, tying into him. Ma and Elizabeth got back on Jumper and tore out for the house, and right after them came the wolf, like he had his mind fixed on catching them and nothing else. But Old Yeller fought him too hard and too fast. Yeller wasn't big and strong enough to stop him, but he kept slowing him down and fought away from Jumper and Ma and Elizabeth. He had to have been mad, son, Ma wound up. You know that no wolf in his right senses would act that way. Not even a big loafer wolf. Yes'm, and it's sure a good thing that Old Yeller was along there to fight him off. I shuddered at the thought of what would have happened without Old Yeller. Ma waited a little bit, and then said in a quiet voice, It's a good thing for us, son, but it wasn't good for Old Yeller. The way she said that gave me a cold feeling in the pit of my stomach. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? Old Yeller's all right. He's maybe chewed up some, but he can't be hurt too bad. See, he done trotted off towards the house. Then it hit me what Ma was getting at, and all my insides froze, and I couldn't get my breath. I jumped to my feet, wild with hurt and scare. But Ma, Old Yeller just saved your life. He saved my life. He saved little Arliss' life. We can't. Ma got up and put her arm across my shoulders again. I know, son, but he's been bitten by the mad wolf. I started off into the darkness of the night, while my mind whirled and darted this way and that, like a scared rat trying to find its way out of a loop. But Ma, we don't know for certain. We could wait and see. We could tie him up or shut him up in the corn crib or some place till we know for sure. Ma broke down and went to crying then. She put her head on my shoulder and held me so tight that she nearly choked off my breath. We can't take a chance, son. It would be you or me or little Arliss or Elizabeth next. I'll shoot him if you can't, but either way, we gotta do it. We can't take that chance." Well, it come clear to me that Ma was right. We can't take that kind of a risk. And from everything I'd heard, I knew that there was very little chance of Old Yeller's escaping the sickness. He was going to kill something inside me to do it. But I knew then that I had to shoot my big yeller dog. Once I knew for sure I had it to do, I didn't think I ever felt anything. I just kind of went numb all over like a dead man walking. Quickly I left Ma and went to stand in the light of the burning bare grass. I reloaded my gun and called Old Yeller back from the house. I stuck the muzzle of the gun against his head and pulled the trigger. End of chapter 15.